Hello and welcome to the show. A big thank you to EA and Codemasters for sponsoring this video and for inviting me to take part in the Race the Studio event that went on recently. This was a bunch of creators racing against a couple of the developers around the, well, kind of the new Jeddah circuit, if you like, on F1 2021. I should say, I am not the most experienced when it comes to Formula 1 cars. Yes, I do a lot of racing, not normally with these sort of vehicles. This was in fact my first ever multiplayer race on, in fact, my first multiplayer race on a Formula 1 game for many years. I don't even know the last Formula 1 game I played actually multiplayer stuff on. So it was safe to say I was not the most experienced going into this one. I mean, not only did I not know the track at all, although most people probably don't know this track particularly well. Yeah, I wasn't, I'd say 100% sure how it was going to fare. I did some practice beforehand and kind of went hoping to do as good as I could, really, around here. Put on a good show and all of that sort of stuff. The race, the sort of session, if you like, would work with a single qualifying session. I think it's about 18 minutes long, which would give you about 3 flying laps to try and set a time, and then it's going to be a 25% race. The cars were all equal performance. Damage had been turned off for this one, which was probably a mercy in some regards, as it's very easy to kiss the wall around this track, or quite a lot harder than that, hit the wall around this track and lose bits of your car and so on. So yeah, you get away with it a little bit more, it's a little bit more lenient if you like. So we're just sort of winding up for the first flying lap in all of this one. There was, thankfully we'd all sorted ourselves out all relatively well spread out. It's definitely a challenging circuit, this one, sort of a decent length start finish straight, big braking zone into this first corner, you sort of flick it left and then right. I actually get a little bit, I'm a little wide through the first part and then understeer all the way through the second part, but it's not the worst thing in the world up towards this next big braking zone. It's very quick, this section that we're going through here, and it's a lovely flowing section, but if you end up out of position through one corner, it really screws you up for one, maybe a bit further down the line, and I'm a little too eager on the throttle this time out. It's just, yeah, there's about 3 corners that before I ran wide that I was in a bit of trouble. I just never really sorted it out. We've got this sort of long, slightly banked left-hander, little bit of a, nothing quite as a weird corner. I could never really figure out what I was doing around that one. We've got these fast chicanes. These are my sort of corners. Sort of stamp on the brakes, downshift a couple of times and turn the car in. This one I get a little bit wrong, end up out wide and clonk the wall. But yeah, very, very small braking zones for these kind of chicanes, and yeah, it really is. You stamp on the brakes, again, this is another one, stamp on the brakes, downshift a couple of times, chuck it, in this case chuck it left, and hope it sticks on the road, the acceleration all the way through here. There's a lot of these kind of flat out corners, they're not really corners essentially, it's just curved straights that we're going down. You don't really have to think much about it, and then jump on the brakes for the final turn here. A little bit wide again through there, nothing terrible, but as far as a kind of banker lap goes, we clonked the wall a bit. That wouldn't have helped us. It wasn't the worst sort of banker lap that we could have done in all of this one. And then begins the silly game of everyone. I say silly game. Everyone did a really good job and was trying to do their very best at keeping out of the way of each other. And it was also the case of trying to figure out who's on a flying lap, who's done a flying lap, who am I getting out of the way of, all while making sure you didn't bounce your car off a wall and everything around here. So yeah, after the first laps, I ended up around 6th, which I was, not too displeased with. Went to kind of run for our second attempt. It was a fairly similar lap, this one. I was a little slower in the first sector, a little faster in the second sector, so it was all kind of much of a muchness as we were coming up towards the final corner, hoping I could at least improve a little bit. A smidge too greedy under brakes, out wide, just nope, not going to work, and ping off the wall. I was kind of aiming for a later apex. I kind of did like the late apex in that final turn to get a good launch down the start-finish straight. However, that one was asking a little bit too much of the car. It was just a little too late on the brakes, couldn't slow it down in time. And at that point, there was no reason to finish that lap. We were not going to be going faster. I'd lost way too much time in the final corner. There's no point going around. I wasn't going to have the fuel to run a second flying lap. In fact, even if I did, I would have messed it up because I was slow down the start-finish straight. So it was like okay, we'll bail out of that. It's not going to work. We'll dive in the pits. We'll go and try again. And the other thing that this did kind of give me is it put me off sequence from everybody else, which kind of a good thing. I say kind of a good thing to me. Ultimately, yes, I think the track does grip up over time, so the track conditions are best at the very end of the race, at the very end of the session, sorry. I'm not good enough for that to make a big enough difference for me, I don't think. Having clean track and no distractions around the place was going to be the way to go for me. If I could get myself at that sort of point, that's why I was kind of happy to go do this dive off sequence, and then have this lap while everyone was essentially doing their out laps, or perhaps even before they were setting out on their out laps. I could go and run this one. I did have one car in front of me, but I mostly had the track to myself. We had a good first sector. I ran a little bit wide, kind of get away, or at least I could get away with. There's probably a perfect line through there. I was finding if you did end up washing out a little high through that sort of banked corner, you'd still be able to carry a similar sort of speed on the exit. So I wasn't too fussed if we ended up a bit wide. And again, made a little bit of time through the chicane, sort of 3/10 up. The Alfa Romeo would do a good job of keeping out of the way as we blast towards this next section. Again, it's that I really like that corner. I really like that section. It's great fun. When you get it right, of course. When you get it wrong, it's horrific. But when things are going well, it's a really, really fun corner to kind of throw the car through. And then it was just this nasty final corner that caused me some grief already. Just jump on the brakes. This time we get it stopped and get it turned. I actually got a little greedy on the throttle there, and we get a bump on the wall. Not as bad as last time. We don't actually lose all that much time, but it could have been even faster that lap had I not ran wide and clonked the wall. And at this moment in time, I actually sat in third, which, so I say, surprised me when I went across the line with that one. That was a big surprise, because I knew it's not likely to stay. As nice as it was to be parked up in there at this moment in time, that was not likely to stay, as everyone was going to have one more lap to be trying to go faster. We were also a fair way off the vehicles at the front. Again, to be expected, not very experienced at all, really, with this game. So anything I could manage to do was a bonus, essentially, as we would trundle our way back to the pits, keep out of the way of everybody, and that was that. Sadly, we did drop down the order by the end of the session. We'd end up in 8th place on the grid. Not too bad, though, overall. The Red Bull ahead of me, though, would get a 5th-place grid drop. I'm not quite sure what for. I presume some sort of blocking. But I've got to say, the lap times were very, very good. I was in a very sort of crowded area of the table. It was pretty damn close between a whole bunch of us. So I wasn't that far away from better spots on the grid. We move to the grid, which means, of course, with the Red Bull taking a grid drop, I would be starting in 7th. Now, we were in front of formation lap, which went predictably badly. I think perhaps a few people didn't quite know how the formation lap worked, etc. And as we got off underway, I managed to get swiped by a Ferrari. And apparently, if there's any collisions on the formation lap, you kind of get disqualified from the formation lap. You're not disqualified from the race; you just get teleported to the start line, and you kind of wait there while everyone else does their formation lap. It didn't quite go to plan. Regardless, we got on the grid, starting from that 7th place. Now, we'd be on the outside for turn 1, but that is the inside for the second corner. So if we could get off the line nicely here and keep ourselves alongside, would have been helpful. We're a little bit later on the brakes than our teammate, but not quite. No space to go there. Sadly for me, an Alfa Romeo appeared from nowhere, ends up clattering into the side of us, almost ends up pushing me. Well, I think I did bump my teammate slightly. We got away, though, without too much damage. The Red Bull sneaks past as well, as we all end up a little bit out of position. The Alpha Tauri was behind me. There was a crash further back. I don't quite know what happened through all of that. I, with a slightly heavy car, a little bit out of place through all of that. I just turned in a fraction too soon. Really easy through that sequence of corners to turn in a fraction too soon. It's a great pass on the Red Bull. A good dive up the inside that was set up a little bit iffy. I did lift, so I didn't pass from the sort of like fast chicane bit, but then I also still had a really good run on the Red Bull. We were up into 9th at this point. I had a fantastic drive. I don't know how I got such a good run on the Alfa Romeo. I don't know whether they missed a shift or something like that, maybe? I don't know. We've got a really good run, but nowhere to go down here. The Alfa Romeo is out wide again through this next corner. I'm still having to be a bit careful on the throttle. We get a good run on the exit. We're alongside, but this is not really the place I wanted to be. The Red Bull had caught back up to us, and that was all over the back as we head towards the final corner. I tried to brave it around the outside. Wasn't quite going to work, didn't quite have the grip. I couldn't go for a big fancy cutback because, well, the Red Bull was there to have a look. My only hope was to go around the outside of the Alfa Romeo. It didn't work, so we had to settle for having lost that place. We ducked back into the sort of slipstream of the Red Bull, go to have a try at turn 1, but can't quite make it. We get alongside, but that's the outside for turn 2. I was ambitious and not likely to work. Dropped the car over the curb, and that was just have to kind of accept that one was not going to work through all of that. So we then barrel into this fast sequence of corners. Yeah, not likely to be able to do much through here. It's just kind of follow the car ahead. If they make a big mistake, I guess you could potentially pick up a place. Now, I'm not quite sure what went on up ahead. The other Red Bull had a spin, and then I don't know whether it was lag involved, what it was. It had a spin, it then got teleported back in front of us. It was then all sorts of trouble over here, and I don't think the Alfa Romeo even knew it was there, and then had another spin. I'm not sure whether there was some lag involved, what was going on with the Red Bull. It kind of did its thing, and it never really affected me, essentially. I was just very confused for a lot of that. Right, so that's happened. I should have focused back on what I can do, which is try and find a way past the Alfa Romeo. Once again, had a really good run down here. As we head through this next corner, it actually brushes the wall, loses its momentum, and I end up giving it a bit of a hurry-up bump. Again, there's another, I don't know whether it's a misshift or what it was, another slow acceleration. Am I using too high again? Something. Slow acceleration down towards this final corner. Now, I learnt my lesson last time. Don't go around the outside. Instead, there was no Red Bull directly behind me. We go for the big cutback on the exit, and it's a pretty textbook cutback in the end that would get the position. Of course, no DRS at this point in the race yet. I wanted to move across, but it was still just about alongside at that point, so we give it some space. It can't brake late enough to go around the outside of turn 1, and we would get the position. It was a good little exchange in that one that would see me back up into 8th place, and I knew I had to get that pass done fairly quickly. As soon as I had got ahead, I was then completely out of sort of sequence through this, and it was all over the place for me. Not what we were wanting to be doing, having just got ourselves into clean air. Wanted to kind of try and focus. As I knew I needed to get past, I wanted to go try chase down the Red Bull. I wasn't going to be able to do that, stuck behind the Alfa Romeo, and the Alfa Tauri was right behind us as well. So it was, we needed to get that pass done as soon as possible, and sure enough, we did. We were finding ways. Like this is a fast, it's a flowing circuit, it's quite a difficult track to overtake on. The braking zones on a lot of places aren't particularly big, so yeah, it wasn't the easiest to find ways past, and opportunity arose, so had to go for it. Well, the start of this lap hadn't been particularly good. The later part of it, we were absolutely flying. We managed to pull the gap to the Alfa Romeo. It was well out of DRS range. We're actually chasing down the Red Bull. We'd sort of closed half a second through the later parts of this one. If anything, we'd actually been catching our teammate a smidge as well as we headed towards the final corner. Not quite so good through here. I turned in a bit too soon this time around, slightly brushed the wall. However, the Red Bull would go for a slightly different strategy. Very, very early stop for that one. I got kind of carried away trying to get some slipstream, almost followed it into the pit lane. Would probably have been a way to go. After a bad start, yeah, might have been a way to go in this one. Then, I mean, the next few laps passed, not a huge amount went on, really, in this one. We kind of set similar, as you can see, in the few laps, we lost a few tenths per lap, really, to our teammate further up. I wasn't quite able to live with the pace. But again, it wasn't, crazy far. If I could string together clean laps, we were fairly similar. I just made sort of little errors a bit more around here. Again, it's just inexperience, really, with this one that got me in trouble. And likewise, it would be an experience that would be costly in the pitting decision. So this was a lap that we were, like by the race strategy, supposed to come in on. And the car behind me, the Alpine, was the leader, had pitted, had got out, was behind us. It was catching me pretty damn quickly. I didn't want to get held up. My battle was not with them. They were far faster than me. My battle is not going to be with them. So I kind of wanted to get out of the way and not... Because even if I let them pass, there's still a potential to lose some time. So I dove into pits thinking, okay, we're not going to lose time. I was actually a little bit cautious. I really didn't want to get a speeding penalty going through here. What I didn't realise is the pit crews, the animations are not as fast as the real-life stuff, shall we say. So while I thought the 4-second gap was more than enough not to be stuck double stacking, it theoretically shouldn't be. And because I had a bad pit in as well, still was. The animation was, it kind of takes a while for them to sort of reset. So we lost some time, and this was a problem for me, because the later pit stop hadn't worked, really. We got ourselves dumped back out right into the middle of the battle we'd been having at the start of the race between the Alfa Romeo and an AlphaTauri, and now I was on cold tyres, cold medium tyres that had nowhere near as much grip. Got it all sorts of wrong through here, and again it was just, I was not in the rhythm, essentially, as you got dumped back out into the fight. I think the AlphaTauri also went very wide, following me at one point through there as well. And yeah, it was just, we were back into the midst of this fight. Okay, yeah, it was a poor strategy call. Didn't really, again, poor strategy call, a little bit of inexperience, didn't quite know what was going on. Did once again carry fantastic speed through here, and the Alfa Romeo made a mistake. It brushed the wall on the way in, brushed the wall on the way out, lost some speed. I had a fantastic run, and there was a gap. The Alfa Romeo moved over a little bit. I thought it had seen the run, and there was a gap that I put the nose in that the Alfa Romeo hadn't seen me having a big run there. The speed I was carrying, I was thinking we were going to be past that car by the time we got to the next corner. We had that huge amount of overspeed, and yeah, it kind of jinked one way. I think it went back. I think it jinked away from the racing line there, and then it goes to get back on it. Doesn't realise how much speed I'm carrying at this point. I don't think they realised how fast I was coming out of that corner. And yeah, there was a gap at one point, and it was then shut, but it was shut too late when I was already committed, and I couldn't get out of the throttle on the brakes in time to do anything about that one. Unfortunate. Most definitely didn't want the collision, because at the end of the day it cost me a bunch. It cost the Alfa Romeo more time, but yeah, it cost me time as well. It was a little unfortunate, just a little unexpected. I think I just don't think expecting it to be as fast there. The AlphaTauri then had a fantastic run down the start-finish straight. Now I was expecting it to have a big dive at turn 1, and it never did. I left space. My thinking there was, if it has a dive at turn 1, yes, I'll be on the outside, but I'll be on the inside for the second corner. The second part of that, and it just never actually had a dive to the inside. So, yeah, in the end it gave us a little bump on the way through, and we stayed ahead as running through this fast section. We managed to pull a gap as yeah, it would have. I ran a little bit wide in one corner, they ran a bit wide in the next, and it was all slightly less than ideal. And yeah, the squabbling had gone on and kind of settled this as a battle further back. There was no chance we were catching the Red Bulls or any of the cars further up. They were too far ahead of us at this point. Our squabbles had dropped us back. I knew I had to try and build that gap again. I didn't want to have the race-long battle. If I was going to beat the AlphaTauri, if I could get it out of DRS range, would be really helpful. And I seem to be quickest through sort of these two fast chicanes is where I was making the most of my time, and sure enough, on this lap we managed to just break that DRS zone. And if I could break that and could stay ahead over that second mark, keep them, would essentially keep them at bay. The chances of catching the cars ahead, as I said, were pretty limited. And I did struggle a little bit to almost get to grips with the medium tyres. I wasn't enjoying them anywhere near as much as the soft tyres on the car. I hadn't done as much running with the medium tyres, so yeah, it was just building up. And by the end, started this next lap, we'd got a decent sized margin to the AlphaTauri. There was a small concern though, as I'd just seen on the scoreboard. The second of the Alfa Romeos, that was running the alternative strategy. It started on medium tyres. I think they qualified 11th, so they started on medium tyres, and then they would swap to the softs. So they were very fast at the end of the race, which was a problem for me. I tried my very best to keep them behind. I mean, I was setting similar lap times to the cars ahead of me. Again, it was only a few tenths would fluctuate. I'd catch a little bit and then they'd pull away. But the car that was gaining was the Alfa Romeo behind me. And I knew it was going to be a tall order to try and defend. I was on tyres I didn't really like all that much against a car on, well, better tyres, essentially. I knew it was going to be a tall order. And they had been absolutely flying. I'd been just watching the gap coming down and down. I knew I was in a little bit of trouble. It was difficult to pass around here short. It was helped though when I just didn't really get this corner right. I slowed it down a little bit too much. I don't quite know why at that point, why this lap I made a silly mistake through there, but we were just a bit too slow through that section. And sure enough, the Alfa Romeo was now right behind me. it's not got a big enough run. It's not close enough to do anything down here. But it is, you know, just sitting in the slipstream. It's not going to have a dive. I'm not worried about defending through this next corner. But again, I was a little too late on the brakes that time around, and it's just the DRS zone's coming up, and sure enough, I move across to the inside to try and make it difficult. It's not enough. Not only did I get a slightly scruffy run out of there on my own, the DRS was just too much. I then made another slightly rookie error. I do tend to brake quite late for that final corner. I was going for the like apex line. I guess they take a slightly different line through there. I just misjudged it, which is silly by me, and is annoying as well in that it denied me an opportunity to try and sort of immediately repass with the DRS. I then proceed to get a big slide on the exit through there, and any chance of a ninth was pretty much gone when I bumped them into heading in towards that final corner. A silly error on that one, which is it's not necessarily a common theme, but just sort of little rookie mistakes, if you will, around here. And then a weird thing happened that I don't quite know. I presume the Alfa Romeo kind of either the tyres were dead, or they sort of figured they'd passed me and they were miles behind the cars ahead and thought they'd just chill for the final lap. Because despite an absolutely shocking start to this lap, the final couple of sectors were then absolutely monstrous from me. Something obviously clicked and managed to get the medium tyres working a little bit. Sadly, too far back. Really, it was a forlorn hope that something might go my way. That maybe it would make a little mistake into the final corner as we go barreling down here. But it was a long way back. Certainly way too far back to go for an overtake. We try the late apex, try and get as much straight line speed as we could. We have DRS naturally, we'd have slipstream. Maybe if I hadn't had the big slide through the first sort of second corner exit, who knows. But yeah, a little too far back. Monstrous final couple of sectors on that one, but that was going to be all that I could manage with the McLaren. Yeah, came home in 10th. A little bit of a shame. It's one of those that I look back and can see all of the annoying sort of rookie errors that I made. Okay, of course, I'm not massively experienced in the game. The sort of one lap pace was never going to be there with the very fastest vehicles. 10th, not too bad. We had a really good fight. Apologies for the bump with the Alfa Romeo. Most definitely not intentional. There was kind of a gap that looked like it was opening up. We had a lot of speed, and then it was closed, and it was too late to change my mind, essentially, on that one. Yeah, definitely an unintentional one. A slight bit of a shame, because we did have a really good battle, actually, with me, the Alfa Romeo, the Alfa Tauri, for a fair portion of that race. This was a lot of fun. It was a very different experience. That much is for sure. It's been a while since I've done, I guess, not ultra serious, but sort of more competitive racing of this sort of style, and very, very inexperienced with the Formula 1 game. So at the end of the day, getting anything out of it was not too bad at all. There was some good fun racing. The track is definitely an interesting experience. I'll say that much. It's when you get it right, it's very rewarding. It's a very flowy circuit in a lot of places. There's some corners I really like around this one. And yeah, when you get it right, it's really good. It's very easy to either get out of the rhythm or to make a little mistake in one corner and have that snowball into further ones. It's definitely a challenge. Overtaking is difficult, can be done in a couple of... It could be worse in terms of a street circuit for overtaking. It could definitely be worse, but it's still quite tough to get passes done around here. But it definitely made for a spectacle, shall we say. As I said, it's a fun... To me, this is perhaps a more fun circuit to hot lap almost than it is to race around. But yeah, there we go. Overall, yeah, the event was good fun, and yeah, thank you very much for the invite to take part in this one, as it was a completely different experience for me in terms of racing, having never really done much competitive with these vehicles. It's definitely a bit of a trial by fire, if you like, sort of throw it at the deep end. But yeah, we had some exciting battles along the way. If you want to have a go, of course, with this circuit, you can find F1 2021 on Steam. There'll be a link to that in the description. Of course, it is on PlayStation and Xbox as well. That, though, is going to be it for this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, a goodbye.